Welcome back to another video. It's your favourite YouTuber here who's apparently red as fuck according to the comments on the previous video. Maybe just because I am red as fuck, I don't know. Anyway, just use and abuse sunbeds basically. This video is going to round up the off season, and I was going to do this by myself, but I thought why not get Jack involved because he's literally just finished, what, a 5-year off season?
Yeah, 5 years.
A 5-year off season, and I thought he could add some value into it as well. So we're going to kind of just reflect upon what we've both done, what went well, what didn't go well, what we think you should do, and then pretty much summarise what we're going to be doing moving forward, which most people already know what we're going to be doing anyway. So I've been in off-season now for 2.5 years. You've been in off-season 5 years.
Since 2017.
Like 2017, which is fucking crazy. What went well in terms of, for me, was I clearly have built muscle. Like, I'm 40 pounds above stage weight, and I look at myself and think there's not 40 pounds to come off. Like, I look at my old 2019 prep starting photos, I was 168, now I'm at 184, and I think the difference between the two is pretty, not drastic, but it's improved for sure. So I think one important factor to take into consideration is I've gone from competing as a junior to now an open sort of short class bodybuilder. It's going from here to then here. So I needed that time off, you know. I took 2 years off, which is a long time. You see a lot of people compete on a year-to-year basis, which I think is great. But I think if you really want to take your physique to the next level, especially competitively, you need to take some time off. And I think we both agree on that it's important to remain in a surplus for a longer period of time and stay away from these sort of holiday preps, these, you know, all these sort of mini cuts.
Yeah, I think social media has done wonders recently in putting out a lot more of the fact that you don't need to stay lean all the time. You're not going to make progress if you carry on staying lean, because that kind of, before everyone wanted to stay lean for social media, whereas now it's kind of the cool, it's almost the cool thing to not do that now. And I think a lot of people appreciate people taking time away. People aren't judged half as much now if they're not sort of lean all the time. I think it's definitely a bit more, not fashionable, but a lot more accepted, which is good. And I think that's the reason why we're seeing better physiques all the time. Because people, especially within the natural scene more, we
go to shows each year and we're like, fuck, every time we've gone to a show, we go see someone like, fucking, who's this guy? Then I'll follow them on Instagram and look at their beginning photos, and they'll be chunky as fuck, and think that's sick. So I definitely think that's more, it's becoming more of a predominant thing. Like, you need to be pushing up your body weight. Like, I'm, you know, like I said, I'm 40 pounds above my stage weight. Is that necessary? Everyone's very different, but I also believe you have to sometimes push the boundaries a little bit to know if you want to have like a new body weight or a new level of muscularity, then you have to sometimes go into the unknown with it. And a lot of us, we want to stay lean because it looks better, whatever, social media, all that sort of stuff, even just confidence within yourself. But you've pushed, what's your highest? The highest you got is
220.
And how much above your stage weight?
My stage weight was 167.
So if you think about that, that's a fucking lot of weight.
50 odd.
50 pounds.
60 pounds. Granted, that was probably slightly too far. Where I was prior to coming down this week was probably a bit more sensible. I was 216 in much better condition. That was a year apart, so I've gained muscle within that time, so that's why they're closer on the scale. And for yourself, you've allowed yourself to get to that sort of stage because you know you can take it all off. You know, you've done it before. You know, maybe to some people that haven't been in a dieting phase, like to your extent or to my extent, they don't know that they can take it off, whereas we've both proven we can. So whenever I used to get comments saying, oh, this was a while back when they used to say, oh, you've let yourself go, you're a little bit chubby, this and that, I said, have you ever been to my condition? No. And I know I can do that, no issues at all. So, you know, providing you know you can get down there, I don't really think it's an issue. The only time it becomes an issue then potentially is if you have to sacrifice a little bit of muscle then to get right the way back down. We'll use AJ as an example. I think he struck it really well last year. Potentially dieted a little bit too hard at the end, but I think he might argue that he was a little bit chubby before coming down, but I think the progress he made in just a year was like says it all really. Yeah,
to sort of summarise that, like, you need to be pushing up your body weight, especially if you're young. I always say that, like, when responsibilities are lower, you're at home still, you know, parents, kind of living off your parents sort of thing, it's the perfect opportunity for you to make progress. I remember some of my uni photos, I think the highest I've ever got was 185 pounds, and that was when I was at uni. Yeah, I was fat as fuck, and I'm in much better shape now, but I made a lot of my progress.
Probably added a lot of muscle.
Yeah. During my 17 to like 20-year-old phase, I added probably more muscle then than what I did now, just through probably pushing a little bit further. So I definitely think it yields sort of some sort of credit to that. But I'd also say, obviously, if you don't know how to get contest prep lean, then it's definitely beneficial to have like a couple people to kind of look at your photos. That's one thing I've been doing even more so up here, is just actually looking at myself more. Like when I was back home, before I came up here, never look at myself, because I just didn't. I thought, I'm in off season, don't like the way I look. But now, as I'm looking at myself more, I'm noticing, like, even, we was in there a couple of weeks back, we're like, oh, I'm leaner than what I was a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, really?
Whereas you wouldn't have noticed that if you weren't checking regularly.
100%. Yeah. So that gives me more confidence to push it a little bit further now, knowing that I've been looking at myself.
Also, there's other sort of markers that you can be looking at in terms of not just body fat. I know for yourself now, digestion's become a big thing.
Yep.
So you've only recently just started adding, I'm not going to use this as a sales pitch for GDAs, glucose disposal agents, but I know you've only just recently added them in.
Yeah.
Do you regret not potentially adding them in a lot sooner?
I wish I used them years ago.
Yeah.
100%. Every time I get to 180 pounds, my digestion used to go to shit. Like on prep, perfect. Christmas trees come out. They don't even know magic poo, you don't need to wear your ass. It's like a Christmas tree log. It's great. But now, is that a word, Christmas tree log? You know the Christmas tree.
Yule logs, is that what
you know the things you have at Christmas, the logs that you make.
Yule logs, yeah, not Christmas trees.
Christmas tree logs? Fuck those. Oh.
Christmas logs.
But yeah, as I was saying, like on prep, amazing. In an off season, goes to shit. And now I look back and I think I should have done that 6 months ago, 100%. Yeah. And you've been using them for years.
I think I literally have been using them the whole off season, 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's like, with every sort of heavy carb meal, they're always in. I know I personally got bashed a little bit at the start because they were quite a new product when I was using them, and I'd only recently signed with Insight, and I think everyone's saying, oh, he's just doing it because they're telling him to. Yeah. But I honestly believe that they are a very, very good product. They're not essential by any means, but if you have a disposable income, you have a bit more money floating around, then I think they definitely benefit. Not just in terms of the digestive side of it, but also, I think they can give you better performance in the gym.
Pumps are better, feel fuller, look better.
In terms of body composition as well, I also think that you're more likely to not store it as fat. So I think that they have loads of benefits.
But yeah, that was definitely something that I should have incorporated a while back, because I was going to the toilet, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, like 5-6 times a day. That's not normal, If you're consuming like 4,000 calories, you're going 5-6 times a day. I'd probably start to think, okay, well, am I actually digesting the food that I'm putting, or is it just going straight through me? And now, 4.6, and I'll probably go 1 or 2 a day. Everyone's very different on that front. I'm not going to talk about shit too much, but everyone goes to the toilet different amounts throughout the day. And if it's normal for you, it's normal. But when you're going up to 6 times a day, every day, it's probably something going wrong there. And I was just accepting that. I was like, I'm just eating off 4,000 calories. I should be going that amount. But when you think about it, there's no way in hell I should have been going that amount of time. So outside of obviously what we just mentioned, gym wise, I think fundamentals, obviously, other than getting, you have to be getting stronger, 100%. I even look back at where I was in 2019 to where I'm now, I am definitely stronger. Obviously some movements obviously change, things like that. I'm not doing certain exercises, but I'm not doing the weight that I'm doing now. And I think it's really important for people to remember, even if you don't logbook, even if you don't care about training to that extent, you need to be conscious about actually using more weight or doing more repetitions over time with that particular weight. Because if you're just doing the same stuff every single week, then you've heard it all before. I don't want to go too much into it, but your body's got no reason to change if you're doing the same sort of shit. So you have to create that sort of novel stimulus to force those adaptations. So we'd both agree on that. What else would you say in the last 5 years has been down to your progression, other than sort of progressive overload in the gym?
Just nailing everything. Sort of fairly obvious, but just getting better and better at doing all the fundamentals of bodybuilding. So keeping your stress low, that's a big thing, which is why obviously to the younger viewers, you're in a prime position to grow, like you mentioned. Managing stress, getting sleep down, and then just routine as well. I think if you can get a solid routine, and even if you've got a busy day, if you can get that routine in, and within that routine I've made, obviously I'm lucky in the fact that, obviously we're both online coaching now, so we can place more of an emphasis on the training, we can work around it. But even it wasn't that long ago that I was teaching, and I still placed a lot of my emphasis of my day on training. Like it was so important to me, so I was so focused going in. You know, I was thinking about it for a lot of the day. If you go into a gym session half-assed, not really thinking about it, you haven't done much prep for it at all, and you just think you're going to walk into it and think you're going to progress from that, not really. Like you can, but I think you're going to get so much more out of it when you start to actually like invest a little bit in your training, take a bit of pride in your training. You see, like, you know, you've got your nut in the game on the Stairmaster, taking that 5 minutes to block everything else that's gone on in your day, because you need to be present. So whether that's you throwing your phone away or whatever, I know we both don't, but some people need that. You need to be 100% present, you need to be 100% focused on the session. So I think maybe just placing a lot more emphasis as well. Like training's always been a lot to me, but before it was kind of just an enjoyment sort of thing. Whereas now, for better or for worse, you know, because sometimes I've got too much pressure on myself. But to the viewers, I'd say definitely focusing on your training, you know, taking some pride in it, making sure you focus in the session.
I also think based upon, especially the past like sort of 6-8 months, the lockdowns for me, because I went into an off season late 2019, then we went into lockdown for 2020 and a bit of 2021 as well. So I think like for me it was that I kind of lost that sort of not passion for bodybuilding, but I lost the sort of, obviously it was in lockdown, training at home, whatever it might have been, trying to sneak into fucking gyms, this sort of stuff. Like I think if you can just fall in love with the process as well, like over the past 6 months since I've, you know, changed my life about, you know, become single, moved away, that sort of stuff, I fell in love, and I have an incredible passion of having the same sort of shit done every single day. So I love the routine of just the simple sort of things like progression in the gym. Like you've got to fall in love with that, like long term as a natural as well. Like you can't be expecting to see change in 2 to 3 months. Like you've got to fall in love with this shit for 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, even for years, do the same sort of stuff. Because if you want to build muscle, then realistically, when you think about it, like we all do the same fucking shit. We all lift, we all train hard, eat food. Like you need to be doing that, and you just need to be doing it for a long time. Like how many people take 5 years off in an off season? That's why you're gonna look drastically different this year when you step on stage, is because people are not willing to do that, you know. And some people get away, like Keithy, he can compete every year and look better and better and better. There are some people who are just built like that.
Yeah.
Like
But then again, he's pulling 300 kilos. So
yeah, for myself, I know each year if I step on stage, I'm not going to look better. I'm going to look the exact same, probably even worse. And most people are going to be like that as well. So I think for many people, actually sort of fall in love with doing the same sort of stuff. If you want to do well in bodybuilding, if you just enjoy training and stuff like that, don't worry about that. But if you really want to maximise your physique and take it to your full potential, then 100% you need to be falling in love with doing the same stuff. Because off seasons are boring, they are repetitive, it is the same stuff. Like you don't, like when you're getting into shape, you notice, you wake up in the morning, you feel leaner, you look at your pictures, you notice a difference. You notice a difference throughout the day. Like I used to eat 150 grams of oats before I go to bed. Look at my arms are fucking full and pumped as shit. Now I go to bed looking like a soggy fat mess before I go, you know? So you don't notice those sort of differences, and it does get a little bit boring. That's why a lot of people fall off in this period of time, because they're not.
But because you love the process, that doesn't matter to you.
Exactly.
Because you're progressing in the gym, you know deep down that you are growing. Like you said, once you fall in love with the process, taking those extended off seasons, or even just taking an off season, is so much easier. I know we've touched upon this on the podcast, but and I know you're the same as me. I don't compete. Have I got this right? I don't bodybuild to compete.
Yeah.
I compete because I bodybuild. Like the competition just came because I love training, and it's the same. So if you just love the process, eventually the stage will come.
Yeah.
And just fall in love with the process, like you said, and it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything else we can add to that? Like,
problem is bodybuilding's so fucking basic.
It is. When you think about it,
it's like so easy. I know that sounds stupid, but it is. You eat your meals and you make sure you're eating enough that you're in a surplus. Job done. You train hard. If you love training, you're going to train hard. Like it just comes. Once you do those two fundamental things, you are going to make progress. Once you nail those two, it's just so easy. I know that's simplifying it a lot, but it is really.
Yeah.
Eating and training.
I think sometimes we do overcomplicate it with all these sort of technical things. I think for most people, they just need to be doing it for a long period of time. Yeah. I still have clients message me and they've only been training for a year, and I'm like, Christ, like, you're 17, you're 18, calm down. You've got so many fucking years ahead of you, you know? Because we always want to get to that end goal in the next couple of months, but realistically it's never going to happen. So like I said, you know, that sort of fall in love with the process of doing the same stuff makes a massive difference. Like I always say, like at the end of an off season, you want to be in the best position in terms of your food. So you want to be progressively overloading your food. so it wants to be the highest point, progressively overloading your body weight, progressively overloading your training, that sort of stuff. So you've got that ammunition to start a prep. Like your food was like near 5,000. My food's about 4.5, 4.6. So
I'm on 4,000 at the moment, and I'm £4 down this week.
Yeah, so I know immediately when I drop 1,000 calories off what I'm eating, still on a relatively high amount of food, but I'm going to be dropping weight very easily. So a few fundamental things like that is what I would suggest. Now, things what could have gone better for you. That's a big one.
It is a big one because you could have quite a list. But obviously for me, like, you know, quite a few of the YouTube viewers who are subscribed to you follow me on Instagram, so they know I do struggle with, like, I've had a few niggles. It's not necessarily physical injuries, but like limitations with training. The first sort of 2 years of that off season, I really did struggle with training. So it was only until about maybe 2019, towards the end of 2019, that training started to improve quite a bit. So it's only really since then that I've kind of been on the way back up. So my off season technically hasn't really been. It's been more from like 2019. So it's been more like a 3-year one. Because for the rest of it, I was kind of hovering around, maybe even on a slight decline. So yeah, training, like my mentality around training as well. Like, I'll be brutally honest. Like, I had a very negative psychology surrounding training, along like that I couldn't train properly, couldn't train the way I wanted, so I'd always have a negative attitude, feeling sorry for myself. And it was kind of around 2019, 2020 I kind of shook myself and said, you know, you do everything else outside of the gym, but you train as hard as you can, you nail all your meals, and then you're going to have this negative attitude. It's kind of like, what's the difference in you missing a meal or cheating on your diet when you're having also those negative thoughts? Because the mind is a very powerful thing. I'm not going to go all hippie on you here, but if you start telling yourself you can't train properly or that you're going downhill, you know, you probably are. Yeah. Definitely my mentality towards the early stages of that off season was definitely sort of poor. You've got did you say you could think of a couple of negatives for myself?
For me, I've got two. So my first one would have been, I wish I'd dieted 6 months ago.
Yeah.
This sounds like I'm contradicting my first point about staying in a surplus, but I think sometimes you get to a limit where, like for me, like I'm 5'6", 184, 185 pounds. Like I shouldn't be eating 4,600 calories at my particular body weight. I don't think I should be doing that. I think if I took a step back, because I'm not gaining weight from where I've been the same weight for the past like 4 months now, and I'm not gaining any weight. And I think sometimes you do plateau. So when you do notice that you're trying to do everything you can to gain weight, like I can't really push food. I can push food more, but I don't really want it. Obviously at this point I'm not going to. But if I took that step back, it's kind of like taking that step back to take 2 steps forward. I reckon I'd have been at 190 pounds by now if I did take that step back 6 months ago. But obviously there was a lot of complications with life, breakups, poor digestion, quitting smoking, that sort of stuff. So that's probably why I didn't go into that phase, because I was just always going up and down. I remember I had to take 2 weeks off because I had a fucking stomach problem that made me drop about 15 pounds in the space of a couple. So there were things like that, but I personally think if I took that step back, that would allow me to push even further. And who knows, at 190 pounds I might be holding on to more muscle and looking better. But for next time I need to be probably pushing my scale weight probably more than what I did before, because like we said to begin with, like if you want to find out you sort of new territory in terms of muscularity, then you need to be going into the unknown with scale weight. I've never been 190 pounds in my life. I've been 185. I've been, you know, same weight I am now a couple of years back, but I've never surpassed that. And I think that's definitely something really important I should have done this off season. To even if I spent there, you know, spent maybe a couple months there, not necessarily spending, you know, 6 months there, but maybe just to experience what it's like to be at that body weight. I might say, you know, hang on, I don't need to be at that body weight, it's too heavy. But for me, I didn't push it as much as what I should have done, and maybe I should have taken a step backwards to then go a bit.
So those pullbacks, I think, coming out of those mini cuts that I've taken, because obviously I've had to take quite a few over that 5-year period.
How many have you taken?
To be fair, I only think it's been about 3. Might have been 4. Yeah. Granted, the 2 years at the start I didn't diet at all, but that's because I was more focused on like the injury side of it. Yeah. But I think I potentially made the most progress within my training and my physique coming out of that mini cut phase. Yeah. So when, you know, because with a mini cut, obviously everyone's different, but within a mini cut, you don't take your body fat down to low enough to where your training's like on the decline. You take it to where it's still really good, and then your responsiveness to food is really good. So when you start getting food back in, you are in a perfect position to grow. So I honestly think that I probably made my best progress when I was coming out of those mini cuts. Yeah. That's not me telling you to mini cut, because if those 6 weeks that I took to mini cut, 6 to 8 weeks, they are essentially wasted time, because you are in a deficit, you're not going to be growing. So to any of the, especially the younger viewers, don't go thinking, oh, I'm going to grow more if I mini cut. You're not going to grow for that period of time. I'm saying coming out of that mini cut, I think the sort of 4 to 6 weeks that I had coming out of those was potentially some of my best progress.
Even from an appetite perspective, I was complaining my appetite was so bad, but I haven't dieted. The last time I had a diet was lockdown 2020, and that was in like May. So I could have pulled back there, and even if it was like 4 weeks maybe, it don't necessarily need to be 6 to 8 weeks. It'd been 4 weeks of just being in a deficit, losing a little bit of weight. That might have opened up my appetite to then push an extra 15 pounds on top of where I was. So sometimes those little things I think are quite important. So obviously, as the more experience you get, when you're younger, you can just keep eating, you keep growing. But I think as you get a little bit more advanced in your sort of lifting journey, I think sometimes taking that step back is important. The other thing that I should have probably done, and I don't think the lockdowns helped this at all, was just have focus outside of the gym, business-wise, or something to do with bodybuilding. Because I sort of, and this is when I wasn't like in love with the process, like during those sort of 2020, 2021 sort of period, I didn't have much to do outside of the gym, and that's kind of where I got a little bit lazy. So I think for me it would be important if I had something going on in the background which have maybe contributed towards my business or contribute towards my bodybuilding goals. But I didn't have that, and I felt a little bit lost in some parts. Don't get me wrong, I loved training, but I was just like, well, what the fuck am I doing? Especially when you're taking 2 years off. Like 1 year, the first year was fine, but then the second year I was like, I'm kind of feeling a bit lost, a bit repetitive now. So I wish I had some goals to focus on outside of that. That's the only real negatives I can think of.
I think potential, to a degree with myself, but definitely for you, also limiting negative influences on your bodybuilding.
Yes.
Or like any interfering things, or like stresses that aren't contributing to it. Not everyone can pick and choose everything they have in their lives, but you can definitely limit your circle in terms, you know, there's a saying that you are a combination of the 5 people you spend your most time with, and you know, it is cliche, but it is true.
Yeah, 100%,
if you surround yourself with people that are bringing you down all the time, or people that are trying to steer you away from your bodybuilding goals, then you know it is going to happen. Like, I've got really good friends back home who I love, and they were like childhood best friends. Like, I love them as people. I get on with them so well, still do, but they don't get the whole bodybuilding thing. You know, quite often spending time with them would be a slight negative towards the bodybuilding, so I don't see them half as much as I should really. But it's because I am so driven with the bodybuilding. So I think this is why the move up here has been so good for us, because now we have people that we get on really well with and really good friends with, but also they're nothing but positive towards the sort of bodybuilding side.
It's definitely the environment, like, change has been massive. Like, I wasn't in a good place last year or even 2020. You know, I was doing a lot of things that I didn't want to do, and I think that was reflected upon my sort of physique goal, my physique in general and training. So now I'm in that environment where, like we said before, it's like, even with you, like, I see it as like a bit of competition as well at the same time, because like the standards are higher now, so I need to put in more work, and I wish I had that a couple of years back. I think right now, if I was going into off season right now, I'd be I'd be fucking buzzing about it, because I know I'd be making so much progress. So, you know, even when it comes to the prep, I'm excited to see just being in this sort of environment, the progress that we're going to make. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's many other negatives really. I think I live and breathe this stuff, so I think
you've been fairly productive.
Yeah, you just learn as you go. You know, these sort of things you just sometimes have to reflect upon. Like, you always learn, like, for example, in preps, I know this prep's going to be better than last prep just because I'm going to learn from the mistakes that I made in the first prep. Same with this off season, I know that my next off season is going to be 10 times better than what it was this off season just gone, just because you learn from stuff. And then that's just kind of how you progress up this ladder. And sometimes we're quite harsh on ourselves when it comes to being perfect, and it needs to be, it's never going to be like that. And I never ask anyone to be perfect, just keep learning about yourself, and look into whether it's investing in your learning, whatever it might be. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's a good off-season.
Gone to town on that, really.
Yeah, we've talked about some shit there, but that helps. Hope that gives you an insight in regards to how you should plan your off-season, what you should do, what you should try and avoid doing, especially if you want to compete, or you absolutely love and live and breathe this lifestyle. Then, you know, there's some good tips in here which you can take to make sure that you are successful in your own goals and your own journey. I've got nothing to comment down below. Always comment down below bottle, but comment down below slider if you watch the whole thing. As ever, really appreciate you watching the channel. We start prep. We probably have started prep as you've watched this video right now. So let the games begin. Let the games begin. Let the fun begin.
Let shreds begin.
One minute. Let the shreds begin. That's what I've got. I talk like that. Let the shreds begin. Let the sheds. I can't even fucking sheds. Just fucking go, you stupid piece of shit. Right, bye.